All right, let's talk about UFC 257. It's what's everyone's talking about leading into the weekend. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, the rematch. This is at 155, not like their first fight, which is at 145. A lot of interesting things sort of heading in. Obviously, Conor and Dustin only fought once last year, but if you look since 2017, Kev, Dustin Poirier has fought 8 times. Conor McGregor's fought 2 times. 3 if you include the Floyd Mayweather fight. And it's not to say that he's not training. Obviously he is, but that is one thing where I don't know if that hurts Dustin or helps him. It hurts him because he's definitely taken some damage in those fights, but it helps him in that he's more active. What are you looking at in terms of this matchup on Saturday? Who do you think takes it?
I think this fight's closer than people think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. I think that Dustin has a real chance if he can put it together that night. You know, you need to be able to put it together because he has enough to be able to beat the guy. I mean, to beat that guy, you gotta be able to stay away from that left hand, and then you got to be able to weather, you know, those flurries that he'll have. You know, Conor has these flurries sometimes where he's throwing a lot of punches, straight punches, and you know, uppercuts, and he's, you know, so you got to be able to weather that. And his gas and Buddy's gas tank is not a big gas tank. He gasses out, you know, mid 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, and down. He's walking on, you know, light legs. So there's a way to beat this guy. I don't know if Dustin can put it together that night, all the way together to where he can look spectacular and actually stop this guy. Because I think that Dustin could stop this guy if, you know, because understand, he fought Gaethje. When he fought Gaethje, he showed heart. You know, he showed heart, and he showed that he can go in there and stand and bang, you know, and also he can out heart and catch the guy first. He caught, you know, Justin with a nice clean thing that put him away, you know. So he showed that he can do that. But can he put it together that night the way he put it together the night that he did with Justin Gaethje? And that's what's remained to be seen. Because, you know, one thing about Conor is he's going to show up. And like, you have to beat him. He doesn't really beat himself, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if anything, he shows up, and if you give him an opportunity to take, he takes it. Like, he takes it right away. Like Donald Cerrone, like, he gave him, you know, the opportunity, and he took it. Like, it was right in front of him. It was the shoulder, boom, a couple punches, and it was done. You know what I mean? So he knows how to capitalize off of it because he's looking for a spectacular knockout. So you know, and you know, Mendez, you know, did the same thing. Who else was standing right in front of him? Eddie was standing right in front of him. Right. So these guys, like, you know, if you give him that opportunity, he's gonna capitalize. That's one thing about him. Like, he doesn't shy away from the bright light. You know what I mean? And he performs in the bright light. So you gotta take it from him, and you gotta take it. And then once you do, he doesn't have enough heart to be able to, or gas tank to be able to sit in there with you. He's going to gas himself out. And if you got enough, then you should be able to. So that's why I think it's a closer fight, because I see so many ways for a guy to win, right? I see one way Conor wins. And the way I see Conor win is he knocks the guy out. I don't see him beating him in no other way, because I don't even see him grinding out a 5-rounder and being fresh. Because I'm like, yo, if this is going to go 5 rounds, Dustin should have enough to be able to, you know, put a hurting on the guy. But, you know, the left hand, man, you know, so we'll see, man. Are we making our predictions?
Of course we're making our predictions. Who are you picking? Where are you putting your money?
After saying all of that, I think that the safe bet is Conor.
Yeah.
That's the safe bet. But if I was a betting man and I had somebody to throw away, you know exactly where I'm putting it, because the odds look great. What are the odds? Like 3?
Conor's like 3-1 right now. He's a 3-1 favorite. Yeah, but see, I would almost say, and I'm going to kind of reveal my pick here. I would almost look at like the round props, like, you know, round 2, round 3. Like, people saying Conor's going to beat him Conor's saying I'm going to finish Dustin in 60 seconds. That's how the first fight went. I don't think that's happening. Dustin's too smart for that. I don't think he's going to, you know, try and, like, here's what bothers me about when people talk about this fight. They keep referencing the first fight, and it's a completely different fight this time around. Dustin, you could see he had lost that fight before he walked in there. He was not mentally ready to fight a Conor McGregor at that point. I think he'd only been a couple camps in an American Top Team. He wasn't ready, and you could just see it on his face in the stare down. This time around, you definitely see Dustin a lot more confident, and he has every reason to be. You referenced the Gaethje fight. That's a huge win. I mean, that's a very big win. Gaethje's a former interim champ. Dan Hooker's a big win too. We'll talk about him in a second. Also, this guy battered Max Holloway. Like, we just saw Holloway put on, and granted, a different weight class. He was fighting at, Holloway's a featherweight, but still, that win over Max Holloway, I mean, he absolutely battered Max. You go look at the damage that Max took in his face. I don't think anyone's done that to him. So that's another feather in Poirier's cap as well, in terms of what could happen. And I'm with you. I think the longer the fight goes, that benefits Poirier. McGregor's style is to typically go out there and take your head off. Well, guess what happens if he doesn't get that finish? Then he slows down a bit, right? You look at those decisions, the fight with Diaz, right? That was a close fight in the rematch. Some people thought Diaz won. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it gets interesting. So Conor, typically, he's better when he finishes his fights, obviously. But I think like the longer the fight goes, Poirier has a little bit more experience in going the later rounds, whereas McGregor doesn't. So my official pick here is going to be Conor McGregor. I want to say third, but I'll go second round. I think, just the problem with Poirier is he does get hit. Even in the Hooker fight, he took some shots. A Dan Hooker shot is a lot different than a Conor McGregor shot. Conor McGregor can put you out. I think that McGregor will put him out in the second or the third round, but it's not going to be a quick finish. I don't think that's going to happen. All these people, it's like nothing happened. It's like no one can improve from their first fight, apparently, according to a lot of people, because they seem to think that Conor's going to steamroll him. I just don't see that happening, but I am going to pick Conor here.
There's a mental edge you have over a guy once you've knocked him out the way you knocked him out. It wasn't a flash knockdown, so there's a psychological in your mind, like when you beat somebody up in your mind, you think you could do it to him again and again and again if you did, because you just know you have his number. So it's really up to Dustin to show us that he's grown, mentally, and he's overcame that, and also that he's gonna, he's ready to go in there and die to beat this man. And that's really the guy that has to show up, is a guy that's willing to just the guy that showed up that fought, Danny Hooker, the guy that showed up that fought Justin Gaethje, the guy that showed up that fought Max Holloway. The only issue with that is that you can't get hit with those shots like Hooker was hitting you with, because this guy will put your lights up. So he has it. Is he going to be able to put it all together that night? That's what, because he's shown us that he can do it. But now you're standing across from a guy that knocked you out, and he knocked you out bad, and he's going to talk all this shit to you. He's going to get in your head. So how are you going to respond to this? Can you put it all together and bring that nigga into where you need to bring him to put him away? So we'll see.
And then obviously the big thing with McGregor is how many times is he going to fight this year? He's saying 3 to 4 times. I think that number is going to be a little bit lower. You mentioned boxing. That could be an option. It's all got to make financial sense. And I think right now during a pandemic, I don't see the UFC really rolling out their bank to obviously this fight's together, but I think in general, it's not going to be easy for them to give Conor the fights he wants at the price they want, I'm sure, because they've got to do all these events. Like, this is the reason I don't think Conor's going to fight 3 to 4 times a year. They survived last year with Conor McGregor fighting once. They survived last year with John Jones fighting once. They find other people to fill those cards up. I'm sure they'd love Conor to fight every month, but the reality is they still have to put these cards on without, whether McGregor's there or not. So to them, it's just about filling seats. I think for that reason, we will only see Conor fight. I mean, he might only fight this one fight, but I'll say he fights twice this year. I'm going to go with that. What do you think?
All right, so here I'm gonna let you in on a little managerial thought. All right.
Yeah.
Here's why he fights 4 times this year.
Okay, I like it.
Here's why he fights 4 times this year. He's trying to get out of that contract. He needs to get the fuck out of that contract. So he doesn't have another 2-3 years to be sitting in that contract. He's ready to get out now and go live his best life and go make all of these big events happen. And he can't do that under this contract. So he has to get out of there as fast as he can. And from my understanding, there's at least 8 to 6 on that contract. There's at least 8 to 6 on that contract. So if you can run up 3 or 4 this year, then you run up another 2 or 3, then you're out. I mean, you're out. You're out next year. So, you run up 3 or 4 this year, you run up another 2, 3 next year, you're out. So his exit, if he goes according to plan, he's out of this contract by next summer. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So now it makes sense. You see why it makes sense for him to fight as many times as he can. And it also makes sense for the UFC because you have a year where it's down. Imagine you have 4 Conor McGregor pay-per-views under your belt in a year with no fans. And the beginning starts with no fans. I mean, it's a good year, and when you're able to, if they have 4 Conor pay-per-views in a calendar year, then they're gonna break all the records from previous years, and that's in a down year. So that's why it makes sense for both parties to try to get as many fights done as possible, because it's a down year, you know, and you're trying to do numbers, and this is the only way you're going to do numbers is letting this guy fight. And also this guy needs to fight because he's trying to get out of his contract. He needs freedom. He has no freedom. You know, he wants to call himself the boss and all of this and that, but he really ain't, you know, so he needs to get out so that he can really be a boss of himself, because that's how he feels, you know. And a lot of these fighters, like that, only a few fighters are in a position to where they can go. They don't need a promoter. They can go and do their own thing. He's one of those guys, you know. So why is he doing that? You know, Canelo is one of those guys. You know, Nick and Nate are one of those guys. You know, so there's only a few guys who can actually do that. You know what I mean? And he's one of those guys. So you need to get the hell out of that contract as fast as you can to own yourself outright. So it makes sense to me.
Okay, well, I'll play devil's advocate here then. Why did Conor only fight once last year?
I think that he was trying to get those fights. I think that he was trying to get the fights he was trying to get, but a lot of things didn't make sense. And then also nobody knew how to deal with the situation. Because remember, he fought early in the year. He fought in January.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And then so you knew that he was trying to start off the year in a bang and try to run up as many fights as he can that year. You could tell this plan that he's doing now was the plan for last year. It's just the COVID happened. And he couldn't run up 3-4 fights. But I could tell he had full intentions to run up a couple of more fights. And that's why, because he's just trying to get out this contract. So nobody knew how to deal with the COVID. Nobody knew what was the situation. And then he started doing, you know, exposing for DMs and all types of shit. And then, you know, the business goes sour, you know, with Dana. Dana can hold a grudge real nice. You know?
Yeah, no, I've heard some stories. Let's talk about the co-main event. I'm not going to dissect this too much, but we've got Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler. I really think Dan Hooker, this is his fight to lose. There's a lot of advantages here for Hooker. For starters, he's a much bigger fighter than Michael Chandler. He's 6 feet tall with a 75.5-inch reach. Chandler is 5'7". Chandler's 5'8" with the 69-inch reach. So Hooker's got a huge reach advantage. Hooker's 75.5 compared to Chandler's 69. In terms of the reach and the height, Hooker's 2 inches taller. He's sorry. Yep.
Sometimes that's not an advantage. I always tell you this. Sometimes it's not. And that little guy, Chandler, you know what he's going to try to do. He's going to try to take this man down. And him being small and compact like that is an advantage for him to bring that guy down to where he's trying to take him. Hooker has a duty. Hooker's duty is to keep that man at the end of that punch and the end of those kicks. Don't let this guy get too close and try to take this thing to the ground, because when you take it to the ground now, you're not taller than me anymore. You see what I'm saying? So there's a real. So this is a stylistic matchup, and when this guy shoots in, because you know he's gonna shoot in at some point in this fight, he's trying to get as close as he can to me. He's either trying to cut distance to fight on the inside, or he's trying to cut distance to take me down. That is what he's trying to do. So I know it, you know it, the whole fucking world knows it. Now I got to figure out how to keep this guy on the end of that 77-inch reach advantage that I have. So if he can fight tall and you can fight long, then you can win. And Dan Hooker sometimes fights tall, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he's inside mixing it up. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. You see what I'm saying? We got to watch how Dan fights, and we got to see how Chandler fights, and to see if he can put it all together.
Well, who does Chandler remind you of a little bit? It reminds you of Iaquinta, which is a fight where he was tall and he was big, and it was an advantage for him in that fight. And that's what it kind of reminds me of, is like Iaquinta, you know, maybe not as good of, well, he definitely isn't as good of a wrestler as Chandler, but still he's got good wrestling and not great wrestling. And he's got knockout power like Chandler does too. It's a very similar matchup. That was one of the things I asked Dan in the interview. We'll plug that here in a second. But, you know, Dan talked about how, you know, there are similarities between the two. And just like I mentioned, the quality of opposition. I mean, you look at it here. Yes, Chandler beat Benson Henderson in his last fight. Henderson's not what he used to be. Sidney Outlaw before that got knocked out by Patricio Pitbull, who's a featherweight. I mean, with Hooker, he's fought, you know, Poirier, Felder, Iaquinta, Vic, lost to Barbosa, has a knockout win over Gilbert Burns. Like, he's fought really good competition too. So that's why I think this is Hooker's fight to lose. Granted, you know, if, like you said, if Chandler can get the takedown, it makes it very interesting. But I think Hooker keeps us on the feet, and I think he either finishes Chandler or he wins dominantly. But that's my pick. I
got Hooker too. I'd like to see Hooker pull this one off. I definitely would like to see him, pull it off. Do something to this guy who's coming in with a lot of hype. Also, the reason why Chandler fights similar to LaQuinta is because they're from the same gym. They were training over there in Florida at that same gym with Usman and those guys back then.
MMA?
Yeah, pardon me?
It's Sanford MMA. It used to be called Hard Knocks, I think.
Yeah,
Before that, it was Black Millions.
Yeah, Blackzilians, yes. So they were over. So he was over there. So yeah, stylistically, it makes it's similar styles because of how they train, the same striking pattern almost. So yeah, But I'm gonna take Hooker for this
Okay,
one.
fair enough. I'm pretty sure Iaquinta didn't train there. He's a Longo, he's a Sarah Longo guy. You might be getting him confused.
No. Quinta,
Ally
no.
Iaquinta?
Yeah, he did know because he was sparring. He was sparring Usman when I was with
Oh, interesting.
Usman.
Okay, maybe he was there for a bit.
When
Yeah.
I was with Usman, we went to St. Louis. Usman fought the Northern Viking guy. What's the Viking
Oh,
looking guy?
Gunner. No, who was it? I'll have to double check that. Yeah, he was preparing for a fight, and so you said that Chandler they were in St. Louis for that, or they were in Florida?
Well, LaQuinta was sparring, was training with Usman the whole time. That's how I met the guy. I met the guy because he was in camp, or he was training with the guys. And then when I went in, the guy was there training with them. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this makes a little sense. And I think that I don't know. I think he was out in Florida training with those guys.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I just know his home base is usually Sarah Longo's with like Aljamain Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili and those guys. And that fight you were referencing was Emil Meek. That was the one. I forgot about that fight because Meek's like hasn't done anything in forever. So that's
another guy that was a bit hyped up.
He was, wasn't he? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I referenced obviously the Dan Hooker interview we did. We're going to throw to that here real quick. Great line here by Dan Hooker talking about how Chandler could be stepping on a grenade in this fight. So yeah, we're going to throw to that right now.
Man, it all goes well. I do my thing. I pick him apart, force him to take some risks, force him to take some shots, and then he runs into a bit of a landmine. And I think we all know what those are. Those are my two knees I got ready for him.
And there you go. That's my interview with Dan Hooker. Really great stuff from him. We got him a couple weeks out. Little tip for you media people out there: get the fighters long before their fight starts. I've seen Hooker do a lot of media, but we managed to get him a lot sooner. Really honest stuff from Dan in this interview. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because you talked about how, I mean, we've talked about this before. Chandler was the backup to Khabib and Gaethje. So that tells me the UFC feels like Chandler is a title contender. Of course, he was a former Bellator champion. And with Hooker, the big thing with him in his career is, can he get over that hump? He had the Barbosa fight. He got destroyed in that fight. And then he had the fight with Poirier, which was his last fight. It was a close fight, but he lost. So I think the theme with Hooker is, can he get over that hump? And for Chandler, he's got to prove that he's as advertised. Is he, worthy enough of being that backup spot for a title shot? So a lot of implications there in this fight. And like I said, the winner, I mean, who knows what happens? Maybe they get the winner of Poirier McGregor. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. Your thoughts on the fight, though, the implications of it anyways.
Was the Hooker? Does the Hooker fight?
Yeah, Hooker and Chandler. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hooker needs this win. He needs this win to show that he can beat a guy that's a high level guy, and also with a pedigree like Chandler does. Former world champion. The different organization. You need to put that under your resume. I think if he beats this guy, I think this is his best win to date. Not his best fighter he's fought, but the best win to his resume to date. So there's a lot there writing for him. I think that Michael beats a guy that's in the top five. Him being the guy in the top five. I think it proves that he's in the top five, and then he needs to be next in line for whatever title is available next. It's just logical. Everything's lined up. So he puts himself in the mix. I think if he beats Hooker, he puts himself in the mix. I think he wins one more. He beats one more guy. I think he gets the title shot because there's too many ways to play. Like, you have him and Hooker. Then you have Oliveira.
You've got Gaethje as well, right?
Who's to say that Chandler is more deserving of a shot than Oliveira is? Even after this win, Oliveira just beat
Tony Ferguson.
I think he's more deserving of a title shot before Chandler is.
He is, but I'll tell you what, I think if Chandler wins this fight, I think he's getting the title shot, because look at the UFC. They were going to make him the backup of Khabib and Gaethje. That to me says they want to get him in a title position as soon as possible. And Chandler is a lot more marketable than Oliveira is. And I'm with you. I think Oliveira deserves the title shot 100%. Destroying Kevin Lee and destroying Ferguson, that automatically should get you a title shot. But knowing the UFC and how they market things, don't be surprised if Chandler upsets Hooker this weekend, because he's a slight underdog. If he wins this fight, I bet you he gets the next title shot. Mark this down. If he wins, I want to be called Mystic Lynch. There you go.
No, you're definitely right about that, because we know how they operate as a business, and we see how they operate, and the All-American wrestler guy who is a former world champion at a different organization coming in with all that heat, and then he stops the guys in the top 5 or beats the guy in the top 5. Then you just take it and you don't take no more risk with him, and you say, all right, we're just gonna bank on this buying right now. We're just going to bank on it right now. We're not even going to risk anymore. To where I feel like there's fighters that are, in front of him in the line. And I think that, a Hooker win doesn't get you the title shot, because Hooker as an opponent hasn't sniffed that title yet, hasn't fought a title fight, but you beat somebody who's either beat a champion or is in a title fight situation, or he's in the mix for that title. Then you just beat somebody who's in the mix. Dan was not in the mix for this title. This is putting Dan in the mix for the title. So from my standpoint, that's what it looks like. But from a business standpoint, you're just gonna cash in on whatever hype you're gonna create from him winning this.